Have you ever been puzzled by unexpected behavior in your code? It can be incredibly frustrating, especially when you think you've set everything up correctly. If that sounds like you, stick around because today we're diving into a common issue with enums in C#. I totally get it. You're not alone in feeling confused when your code doesn't behave as expected. Many developers have faced similar challenges, especially when it comes to enums and their default values. Here's the specific question we're tackling today. One user asked, "Why is item Baz showing in the output, even though I declared default values for all items in the enum?" This is a great question, and one that many C# developers have wondered about. So what's going on here? In C#, enums are essentially named constants, and they start at 0 by default. However, if you assign the same value to multiple enum members, it can lead to unexpected results. Let's break this down with some examples. And make sure to stick around until the end. I'll share a crucial tip that will help you avoid these enum pitfalls in the future. To understand why the user is seeing Baz in the output, we need to look at how enums work in C#. Enums are essentially named constants, and each name is associated with an underlying integer value, starting from 0. In the first example, the user defined an enum called foo with 4 items: bar, base, bread, and jam. The first item, bar, is assigned the value 0 by default. When the user sets foof to 0, it corresponds to bar. In the second example, bread is explicitly set to 0. However, since bar is still the first item, it retains the value 0. Therefore, when foof is set to 0, it still outputs bar. In the third example, Baz is assigned the value 0. Now both bar and Baz have the same value. When foof is set to 0, it outputs Baz because it is the last defined item with that value. Finally, in the fourth example, all items in the enum are set to 0. In this case, when foof is set to 0, it will output Baz because it is the last defined item with that value. Fun fact, did you know that enums in C# can be a bit like a game of musical chairs? The first one to sit down gets the value, and if multiple items have the same value, the first one defined wins. Now, let's look at the answers provided by other users. This user explains that enums in .NET are essentially just integers. When you use an enum, the system tries to find a defined label that matches the integer value. If there are multiple labels with the same integer value, it leads to ambiguity in the output. For example, if you set an enum value to 0 and multiple enum labels share that value, the output can be unpredictable. As an alternative, the user suggests that you can assign any integer value to an enum, even if it doesn't match any defined label. For instance, using foof equals -132,861 is valid, but it won't correspond to any enum definition. Let's take a look at an answer from another user. This user explains that you cannot set default values for individual enum members in C#. The default value for an enum is 0, which corresponds to the first element. If multiple members share the same value, they override each other, leading to confusion. They suggest introducing a default member named none and assigning it to 0, placing it first in the enum. Let's take a look at another answer from another user. This user provides an example to clarify how enum values are assigned in C#. They explain that if no integer values are assigned, the first item in the enum defaults to 0 and subsequent items increment by 1. If specific values are assigned, they overwrite the default increments. Here's the tip I promised. Always ensure that your enum values are unique, unless you specifically want them to share values. This will save you from unexpected outputs in your code. And there you have it. Now you understand why enums with default values can behave unexpectedly. Remember, clarity in your enum definitions can save you a lot of headaches. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe for more coding tips and tricks.